Welcome to AlphaCars. My name is Dimitri. I'm here with Ian. He's running the camera, but he has a mic and he always has awesome input. And here we have 1967 Chevy Chevelle. Is this a Chevelle?
Yes, it is.
Okay, but that's actually irrelevant. The topic of this video is the quality of an automobile and also a transparency when you're looking at a vehicle online. Here to my right, I have a paint meter tool, which we always use when we look at vehicles. But it is so irrelevant for this vehicle, we're actually not going to use it because this car has so much paint and so much body filler that the paint meter is an irrelevant tool for this inspection. So this car was purchased on Bring a Trailer, and you'll find it on Bring a Trailer, and it is listed as a spectacular vehicle. And we're doing an inspection on this vehicle now. It has not changed its condition since the time of that listing. So we're going to look at things that buyers are not aware of when they're looking at those listings, because those listings are clearly not transparent. If you do wish to see a transparent listing, visit alphacars.com and check out one of our listings. And we are the benchmark of the transparency, and still there are some things that we may miss, which we try to catch up on what we call pre-delivery follow-up inspection. But this video is not about AlphaCars, it's about you when you're considering to purchase a vehicle without going in and having it inspected professionally by a qualified specialist, and that's another topic. We might do another video on that. Or going in yourself if you do have a skill set to identify the things we're going to show you on this vehicle. So let's get started. So with this video, we're not yet looking at anything to do with mechanical components of the vehicle. The engine starts, it runs without any abnormal noises, and a quick glance at the underbody suggests that there was a lot of work put into this vehicle. What our concern is actually the cosmetic condition of the exterior and paint, specifically what may be under the paint, and also what was the metal condition that the paint and underlaying components were applied to. And just to get the interior out of the way, the interior is actually in good condition. There are some flaws that, like for example, peeling chrome on some things like this. You can see it right here. So that just throughout the chrome, there are a lot of that. And then you can see something, we'll get there with the camera in, if you can show the condition of the fuse box. And also, there are literally large openings in the firewall behind the pedal right into the engine compartment.
Yeah, I can see the color of the engine.
Yeah, while it gives you an enhanced sound of the engine, that's not the healthiest situation. And I'm not sure if the camera captured the fuse box, but the fuses are in the tabs, and the tabs are thoroughly rusted. So that is something definitely would need to be addressed. And now onto the paint. So we don't know exactly what the age of the paint is, but it is not the most recent paint job. It doesn't appear that way. And again, we're going to start from top, kind of going down and to the sides. So when we look at the very top, you can already see bubbling of the paint, and those little bubbles right in this area. Let's try to pick that with the camera and with the light reflection. You can see them right throughout here. Right in this area. So those bubble are indication of paint lifting. So the paint is actually, there is an air gap between that. So if you, not that we would do that, but if you poke that, you would be just peeling that off. And eventually that's what will happen. So that's definitely a big deal. So let's look at the condition of the paint. And it's okay here and there to have a little, actually it's not okay, I shouldn't say that, but it's okay if you see it here and there, little what we call dust particles. But here, dust particle per square inch clearly exceed what is reasonably expected. And there are a number of areas on the vehicle when it is like that. This could be one of the worst ones right there. Also, if you look at how much of the effort was put in to make sure the paint actually wraps around the panel. So obviously these stainless steel moldings were not removed. Yes, it's challenging to remove that, but when you're doing a scope of work on a vehicle of this class, that should have been removed. And again, all these conditions should have been clearly disclosed in the Bring a Trailer listing, but that is a choice of the seller. That's not the requirement or the choice of the platform. So if you look at this, you'll see there's actually uncovered layers of body filler just by color. You can see what that is. I'm not even mentioning the general featherness of the edges and waviness of the edges. You can see it actually deviates. You can already see some cracking of the body filler that happens right there, and then this crack will eventually travel, and we'll see how they travel on the backside here. We continue with the roughness in the paint and paint embedded dust particle in the paint. I'm not even mentioning an overspray of the paint on the shafts, the parts that should have not been painted. We're not even getting on that level here, but I'll mention that. And then if we get kind of like we get into this area in the fender, you can see quite a bit of what we call dullness. And then it gets to already an issue with, I suspect, either primer or body filler, which is under the paint, because you can see pretty dramatic sand marks, and you can see them here in this direction, sand marks that are making their way through the paint. So that's pretty much right in this area. And there are a lot of areas like this. I'm using some as an example. You can also see right here, I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up, but there's a little bit of the bubbleness, tiny little bubbles that start to bump up here. That's probably because there's a very thin amount of paint on this rib. And actually, we will use paint meter in this area, see what we're reading, 5.5 mils. And if I measure it here, I measure them over 20. So 9 here, 10 here, 17 here. You're getting close to 20. That's already too much of material. But here we have very little. So, and that's why that paint starts to dry up and shift. So we did end up using the paint meter after all. I'm glad we had it. Beautiful body lines on these vehicles. So definitely that is all really, really special. And then when we look at the hood, you would see in different areas, you would see paint imperfections embedded in the paint. And right in this area, you see kind of like baked in overspray. You can see it right here and then over there. You can see fish eyes that usually when the silicone is present in the air when painting, and you can see the fish eyes kind of like all over here, some sand marks. So it's just another example, and there are much more in the paint throughout the vehicle, but these are just some areas where it definitely is a concern. And there's more right here where someone was trying to do wet sand and buff, but you can still see a fisheye kind of embedded in there. More sand marks, you can see them right in this area. Ian, maybe you can, I'm not sure if you can see it from there, but I know from here there's a lot of sand marks under the paint. Let's see if the camera will pick that up. It's tough to get that.
Yeah, we can see them right here in the kind of the reflection of the sky outside, actually.
Yeah.
You can see it, it almost looks like it was applied with the brush, but that's just the material underneath.
That's underneath, yes. And there are a lot of like chips that have been touched up, which is really the least of the issues that are with this vehicle. There's a lot of waviness in the paint, and look at this. Look at how feathered this is. So in other words, when the paint technician was going and applying the paint, he did not go in this direction. He did not put enough paint to put enough material so it floats. So you can see this rough featherness on the this edge. I'm curious, this is just for my curiosity, I'm curious what's the thickness of the paint here. I'm not sure if I have enough. Oh yes, we can do that right here, so we can grab that. Well, we do have enough paint. He just did not put enough on the last coat for it to float. So it was either too much pressure or too little paint, or combination of both, because you do have enough material here, but as far as clear coat, we cannot say how much of the clear coat is there, but it definitely looks awful. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not a great contrast and not the quality you'd expect.
Yes, on this level of the vehicle.
Yeah.
But again, we don't know what was the ultimate goal when this vehicle was worked on, because obviously they put a lot of effort in the engine, in the drivetrain, and we'll make some comments, but this video is not about that. So then we're going to look at some other areas right here around the windshield. Similar scenario where there's body filler literally stuck in there, and they couldn't do any work here because they did not remove the molding. And you can see the roughness in the paint throughout.
And there's a little bit of surface rust in that gap at the top as well.
Absolutely. It's actually throughout the entire length, for sure, because there's not enough paint there. And the only reason this car did not rust badly, because this has not been driven under usual normal driving conditions. I'm not sure if you can see it with the camera. Look at all these fisheyes. Now you can see them from that angle, can you? Mm-hmm. So look at this. There's the whole hood shot with it, and there's featherness right there. It just, again, depending on the angle you see, but this is, yeah, this is pretty bad. Yeah, now from that angle, it's even more dramatic. And it's just everywhere you look, there are substantial, what we call elements of what the substandard bodywork and substandard finish does look. And unfortunately, that is present on this otherwise spectacular, legendary, gorgeous vehicle. We're going to make our way, and again, let's make sure we just tell you that these are not the only issues. There are a lot more issues. We're just showing you stuff that it's obvious, because if we go after each one, it's going to take a long time. For example, if you look this way, you can see, again, by itself, it's not a big deal, but for this car, so you can see this edge. It was never straightened. It's kind of rusting now. It looks rough. You can look at this detail right here, where this is the frame of the window, and it's clearly the condition of what you would expect on a 1967 vehicle, but not on the vehicle that's been professionally restored, and not the way it was presented in that Bring a Trailer listing. So yeah, if we look at all these areas, there are paint deficiencies you can see. And if we make our way around this way with the camera, you can see some white body filler is still sticking out. There's a lot of that. And pretty much the same condition around this window as we saw in the front, with very little paint past this edge. So you can see right there, there's a little bit of rust there. And there's pretty much unpainted, untreated surfaces, and that's around the perimeter. And of course, that by itself is not a big deal, but it's pretty bad. There's a good amount of dent, like gouge, right in the molding. And because these moldings were not removed, you can see a lot of roughness in the edges of these panels, just across, and you can see some of that roughness already lifts up right there. And then if we make our way from this edge to this edge, this is very interesting. So there's supposed to be a certain gap, like you can see it right here, that is supposed to be finished in a certain way. And this gap was just bluntly refinished. So the paint just floated in there, leveled in there, and now it's cracking. So it's looking pretty ugly. It's only going to look worse. That is present on both sides. So it is definitely a very rough paint job. The trunk is very similar condition to the hood, And then let's look at the quarter panels, because this is just, it's just hard for us to comprehend. So this was refinished, it looks like, with a bumper on the vehicle, because look at this tape line. There's a tape mark right here. And then you can see the tape line pretty much goes vertically. They didn't even care to, well, the right thing would be to remove the bumper at this point. So we don't know if this quarter panel was repaired after the restoration. Is it a part of the restoration? But you can see a small crack already shooting out right here. And just the way it looks, it's ugly. And then, I'm not sure if, Ian, we can get the camera to look this way from here. Mm-hmm. You will see, you literally see some sand marks. Yeah, let's get the camera to go up, and you can see this right here. So from here, and look at that white, that is body filler. And the paint stops right there, and then this is, we don't know at which point was that refinished, but that's pretty rough. And behind that, there's already a floor. And we said we're not gonna look at the underbody with this video, but there's actually rust shooting through the undercoating right in this area. Right in this area. Let's see, can we see that?
Yep.
Yeah,
you
right
can see
there.
all the orange.
Yeah. And speaking of sand marks, they managed not only to get it on adjacent panels, but look at this. They even managed to get it on the window. So this is not coming off. This is DA, dual orbital sander. So when they were sanding this stuff, they actually got through the whatever masking material they had, if they had any. And so that has a permanent signature of that body technician right on that glass.
Yep, it left his signature.
This quarter panel is about the same condition. We don't have to spend much time on it, except we're going to take a peek at the underside of this quarter panel.
There's also, this panel did have a,
oh yeah, that's, you can
a bit
see
more than the other one.
Yeah, you can already see, I'm not going to push on it, but this is actually paint lifting, because when they painted this vehicle, this extension was not removed, so they were painting, but the paint did not flow around the corner, so the paint stopped right there, and it did not adhere properly because you cannot sand properly over there. So now the paint is actually lifting. You can see that. We're not going to poke it, but it is lifting. And then we're going to see something very, very interesting. We're going to look at the inside of this quarter panel, and you can see that it looks reasonable. We don't know exactly what's under that undercoating, but at least it's a reasonably straight, with the exception of that area right there. It looks like there was some welding done or body filler applied. But here it looks reasonably straight. So let's look at the other panel. We're going to switch places, Ian. Thank you. And we'll move this box a little bit. And here you can see a dramatic amount of bumpiness. Because every bump that comes out this way, that means there's a body filler on the other side. So that just kind of like an old school, not in the best meaning of the word, old school body work. Speaking of old school, check out these stops from the carpet. So these are bump stops when the trunk closes. It's it's better than nothing, but it's just not something you expect on a $70,000+ vehicle. Not to mention, again, just insufficient paint under the moldings. I'm not sure if this molding was ever removed, but you can see a lot of deficiencies, including rust, already showing up. And on this side, it's pretty much the same. So there are a lot of other areas of concern, but just what we mentioned so far is a big deal, including like this little innocent hole. You see this? Mm-hmm. So that means that this metal was weakened by rust, and then kind of to build it up, they sprayed some body filler. You can see body filler sculptured around this area.
Yeah, you can see layers.
And look at this, because this was the original shape. The original shape in, let's show, it's supposed to look like this. But here, they threw this body filler, and you can see the body filler patch kind of runs this way. They did not even bother to scoop it out of this little opening right there. So that is rough. That is rough. I'm very disappointed. And I'm sure the owner of this vehicle would be disappointed. Yeah, the electrical harness, this is the original one. It is pretty rough. The engine, this one looks newer, but things just falling out as I touch them. So I shouldn't be touching too many things. That's not a big deal. That should go right in.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's not twisting. You're supposed to twist it, but it's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, I even see all the connections, all the wiring just has the coating. They just sprayed over it.
Yeah.
Even the latch, the trunk.
Oh yeah.
The trunk
yeah.
latch is actually all gummed up with the coating. So.
Yeah. Well, at least they used a little bit more expensive undercoating, like a chip guard, because it's hard drying, it's non-sticking. Mm-hmm. So that's a step in the right direction, but it was applied to very rough surfaces. So let's take a peek under the engine, because on a positive side, when the vehicle was unloaded, the engine ran. It was loud, but it ran pretty good. Things look okay at the first glance. I'm not a big fan of, like, again, when you're doing this expensive engine upgrade, you would at least have little brackets with guides. Well, here's a guide, and it should stay on the bracket. You should never have the wires against sharp edges. This car and these types of cars, they're certainly not driven daily, but if you drive this car for a couple of days, or certainly after a little while, it's going to get cut through the wire, and it's going to start misfiring on that cylinder. So we do have the coolant shut-off valve right here that has developed a rust and a leak. That's nothing to do with the restoration job, but just the way that it's zip-tied together there. That's a problem because, we have sharp edges of the clamp protruding into the holes. The hose is a GM. That looks good. This clamp is good and original. So it definitely has some flavor and at least attempt at doing something right. So by itself, those things they're not huge concern. The condition of the body is massive concern for this vehicle. It definitely puts it in a completely different caliber with respect to value, and it certainly does not align. We inspected that listing very carefully on Bring a Trailer, and even with a professional eye, we were not able to identify these things because, again, someone who set up that listing, they were also professional and they were skilled at not being transparent because obviously it did not carry the transparency that any buyer should have when they're looking at this type of vehicle at that price point. So thanks for spending your time on this segment. We would love for all our videos to be positive, exciting, and it's like, wow, we have this vehicle. We're still gonna go wow about this vehicle because it has a lot of vintage character, and I'm sure it's gonna find a good home, and with a level of transparency that I'm not sure if we'll end up selling it or someone else will, it is going to offer a transparent purchasing option for the buyer, for the right price, for the right condition, because everything can be corrected, and we have not completed the mechanical inspection, but the engine ran nice. The clutch felt good. The gear shifted good. So it still maybe, even in as-is condition with a few little things addressed, it still would be an awesome buy for somebody. But again, they need to know what exactly the condition of the vehicle is, because what we call 30 feet away, 20 feet away, 30 feet away. I think this vehicle is probably 20 to 30 feet away. When it's nicely detailed, it will present very well. And for a trained eye, even getting close will take a while to figure out some things. But with this video, hopefully we gave you that peace of mind next time you look at the vehicle on Bring a Trailer or some other site. It could be just a dealership website. It could be Cars and Bids, could be something else. And there are transparent buyers out there too, but unfortunately in our experience, we haven't seen those very often, but I'm sure they're out there. And so ask for transparency, and that car is a good example. Thanks for watching. Ian, thanks for running the camera. How did we do? Did we cover everything? I'm sure there's more stuff, but from what we were able to see, what do you think?
I think we summarized it pretty well.
Yeah. So thank you guys. Please consider sharing, subscribing, and let us know which videos you like the best by simply clicking that like button. My name is Dimitri. I'm here with In. Until next time.